Have you ever had sleep paralysis and what was the experience like? I'll never forget one time I had an episode, starting hearing weird noises and tried moving but couldn't, obviously, was too afraid to try opening my eyes. Suddenly it gets dead silent and I hear a little girl whisper, "My dad is dead." Then a man began whispering some satanic gibberish shit. When I finally could move again I went right into my mom's room. I couldn't sleep alone for a few months after that. I get sleep paralysis pretty frequently, so I've commented on this before. Now that I know what it is, I just kind of let the madness play out and fall back to sleep if I can. For a long time I thought I was experiencing hauntings or demons, or that I was going crazy. It's been a regular thing since I was really young. Usually I wake up, realize I can't move, and then have a super frightening visual. Being operated on / autopsied, an invisible thing crawling into bed with me, shadow figures, whatever. I've experienced it like all of 3 times in my life. It's pretty terrible when you first realize it's happening. I've never experienced the hallucination aspect of it, but realizing that your body is stiff and no matter how much willpower you have, it just won't budge. In my experience, it didn't last longer than a minute or so after waking up. The last time it happened, I did deep breathing techniques and just powered through it, but that was about 3+ years ago. Hope it never happens again though. I'm 30 now and I've been having bouts of sleep paralysis on / off since the age of 15, the most frequent being every single time I fell asleep over the span of a few months, the least frequent being once every month or so, also over a few months span. It feels like you're awake but drowsy, you can think straight for the most part but you can't move, you're trying to wake up by effectively trying to move a 1,000-pound board off of your head. You try many times before you finally break through and wake up. In my case, if I get sleep paralysis while I'm sleeping on my back, breathing is very difficult and it feels like I'm being suffocated but won't die. Sometimes it lasts for well over 5 minutes, which in sleep paralysis is a fucking long time. It's like thousands of pounds are on you, all you can move is your eyes and it's honestly terrifying though I learned a trick to wake up faster. Wiggle your toes and fingers, this has helped me very much. The worst thing I saw was a woman in a hospital gown open my room door and started screaming and then repeatedly hit her head hard into my room door over and over and she was crying and screaming and it was the worst. Or sometimes I'll have sleep paralysis where my dream will be that I'm late for something and I'm self-aware that I'm having sleep paralysis and I'm trying to wake up and I'll dream that I woke up only to not be able to move and then I'll wake up from the thinking I'm awake but I'm still dreaming and it goes on for a while until I actually legitimately wake up. It's the most horrific thing I can imagine and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. I've had it throughout my life including a few times as a child. If I had to guess, maybe 10 times ever so, not often. For me it's just a feeling of dread from being unable to move or speak. It's hard to judge time while it's happening. It doesn't go on for very long, at most I would say 2 to 3 minutes, but it's terrifying. It might seem crazy to people who haven't experienced it, but most people just fall back to sleep after a sleep paralysis episode. They don't stay up terrified all night. On a few occasions I've been able to move my fingers but just barely, and it takes all your might to move a centimeter. Some people claim to have hallucinations but I've never had any. An interesting fact is that alien abductions, ghosts, and other paranormal phenomenon have been attributed to sleep paralysis. You might clearly see aliens or creatures around you, or they might be out of your peripheral vision. Sometimes shadows or a feeling that something is in the room with you. There's nothing paranormal or supernatural about it though. I like to think about sleep paralysis as a bug or glitch for humans. It happens to me but only if I'm taking a daytime nap. I've never experienced the horrifying things described here, but what I hallucinate is the room, from my point of view, as I last saw it before dozing off. So I'm paralyzed and can't move but thinking I'm awake looking at the room. After a while I realize that the dream haziness of it means I'm not actually awake, so I just go back to sleep, which seems to be the only way out of it. Sometimes I really struggle to wake up but it's no use, and I often panic a bit at the thought, what if I actually need to wake up? It was very scary. I was half awake, couldn't move or talk, but I saw a black human figure standing at the foot of my bed, then it slowly started walking to my side of the bed. As it got closer, I got back control and before it got to me I was fully awake. I nearly pissed my bed. I didn't know what happened to me. Then I read up and saw it was sleep paralysis. It happens to me once or twice a year. It's still scary when it happens though. I get very frequent sleep paralysis when I'm stressed. So bad that it happens 3 to 4 times a week. Most of the time I'm unable to breathe and I would do everything to wake myself up cause I thought I would choke to death. I never saw any wonky demon shit, it's just the choking. The bad part is that I actually have a problem with stuffy nose. I have had it almost every day for 2 years, or I rely on nasal spray to sleep. I can't tell if the hard to breathe part is real or not. I might actually die in my sleep. One time it got so bad I probably had 2 to 4 episodes every hour, so I think I experienced about 15 to 20 times that night. I got so done to the point I decided to not sleep at all and Google how to make it stop. Thankfully I don't get them so often now that I'm in university. High school workload was a bitch. I get it, almost, every time I fall asleep on my back, so I've learned to deal with it really well, but apparently it's evolving. I'll elaborate. First, I learned not to open my eyes when it happens, or else you see freaky blah all around your room. This worked well for a bit, until one time it was accompanied by auditory hallucinations. It was like strange voices whispering stuff in my ears. Couldn't really avoid this, so I just learned to try and ignore it. But now, apparently I also get body hallucinations? Not sure what to call it, where my whole body is tingling and feels like I'm levitating while spinning around really fast. This goes on until I open my eyes, but then I have to deal with seeing all the spooky blah around my room and the occasionally jump scares that happen when I open my eyes and see something sitting on my chest and very close to my face. When this happens, the shock usually jerks me out of the paralysis. Otherwise, if a jump scare doesn't wake me up, I get out of the sleep paralysis by allowing to go back to sleep, and back into a dream. Once inside my dream, I close my eyes and clench my fists really tight for 5 to 10 seconds, then release really fast. This will either completely wake me up, or put me back into sleep paralysis, where I just repeat the process until I fully wake up. Having sleep paralysis is the worst thing ever because I was laying in bed one night and I was woken up. I couldn't move and I heard something fall on my dresser, almost like someone stepping down onto my dresser, because my bunk bed goes over my dresser and I was laying on the bottom bunk. P.S. I've had the bunk bed since I was 9 years old and I never decided to move it out of my room, and I was just staying that night and was gonna go back to my real house because I will just stay at my dad's house. I was terrified and I thought it was my cat just jumping down because she usually sleeps in my room, until I heard the cat at my door meowing, so I knew it wasn't the cat, and then I looked up at the dresser from where I was laying and someone was staring straight back at me, and it was like that for around 20 to 25 minutes of me being absolutely terrified. I get sleep paralysis pretty regularly. At this point it's not a big deal. Usually it's a dream that someone has broken into my flat, except it feels fully real and I'm trapped in bed and can't move or scream. It usually happens in the middle of the night and I have to get up for a while to distract myself a bit before going back to sleep. I can recognize it pretty easily now, so it's not a big deal, but the first few times it happened it was scary as hell. I remember trying to scream as hard as I could, yelling in my head and yet hearing nothing come out. It can be pretty scary the first few times, and not being able to move or speak while terrible things are happening to slash around you is a whole new level of fear. A bunch of typography flashing in front of my eyes in a changing white and red while staring up at my completely pitch black ceiling, then hearing a terribly loud demonic scream in the background for the entirety of the time an albino bunny demon thing gets in my face, curiously examining me. Me being unable to speak, whispering the words I'm trying to scream with exhales of air that come out as shashasha, and the words being a chant in my mind, something like "God, please, help me," in almost a rhythmic manner. I was also on a floor, and not in a bed. I felt utterly shaken, but I fell back asleep quickly after. My body has this sort of emergency brake system that shuts down all of my emotions and in turn regulates my breathing and heart rate, which kicked in almost immediately. It hurt to move though, my fingers stiffen almost like they had pins and needles. It's not all that great, but hey,